The imperial chef who once cooked for gods now kneels in a rat-infested shack, blind, broken, and down to his last coins. The palace took his sight, his knives, his purpose. Only the stench of the canal remains, until an unexpected voice cuts through the darkness. One day, a starving girl stumbled in, the shack's usual symphony of dripping water, and scuttling rats stilled as the tattered door curtain fluttered weakly. Not the usual wind. Something alive hesitated beyond the threshold. Breaths too shallow for an adult, footsteps too light for the drunken scribe who sometimes wandered by. The chef's hands stilled over the fire pit, the frayed edges of his bandaged eyes catching the firelight. Months of blindness had sharpened his other senses. He caught her scent before her voice, the iron tang of old blood, the sour sting of unwashed skin, a child left to wither like canal reeds. She was no more than 10, her bones sharp under grime-streaked skin. When she crossed the threshold, her breath hitched, a sound so small it might have been the wind. But the chef knew the difference. Her tunic was rough-spun, the kind palace kitchen maids wore. He knew without seeing how the dye had faded from blue to the color of dishwater. Now it hung like tattered sailcloth. Her steps were slow and uneven, her breath shallow. She hovered at the edge of the shack's doorway, not sure whether to enter or flee. The chef, sitting by the fire, tilted his head. He had heard the footsteps, the labored breathing, the soft cough that rasped like sandpaper in a dry throat. He didn't speak, just turned his face slightly toward her, his bandaged face tilting as if searching the air for clues. "I smelled food," the girl lied, her voice a dry leaf rasp, a poor lie. The shack reeked of mildew and ashes, the last proper meal cooked days ago. But the chef recognized the survival instinct. She'd followed the smoke, not scent. His own stomach growled in sympathy, remembering his first night exiled from the palace, how he'd licked spilled soy sauce from a merchant's discarded jar. Still, the chef said nothing, not out of coldness but uncertainty. It had been so long since he had heard a child's voice, or any voice for that matter. He motioned to the mat near the fire pit. The girl stepped in, hesitated, then sat. Her hunger overpowered her caution. "I haven't eaten since yesterday," she whispered, knees drawn to her chest. The chef said nothing. He didn't ask where she'd come from, or why she was alone. He simply reached for the pot beside the fire and ladled what little porridge remained into a chipped bowl. It was mostly rice water with strands of boiled greens. He held it out. A pause. Then he felt the bowl lift from his hands. She slurped it down, too starved for shame. That night he didn't sleep. He lay on his mat, listening to her quiet breathing near the fire. She had curled up like a cat, arms wrapped around her thin belly. In the palace, he had fed noblemen who wasted food on whims. Now, in this stinking shack by a canal, he had fed a child who nearly died for lack of it. In the morning, she was still there. When he stirred, she did too, rubbing her eyes. "I can go," she mumbled. "I didn't mean to stay." The chef shook his head. "If you're hungry, help me cook." The girl blinked, unsure if it was a joke. But the chef had already shifted to sit by the fire pit. He reached for a bowl, knocked it slightly, then steadied it. His movements were slow, deliberate, almost ritualistic. "I need someone to be my eyes," he said. She looked at him. Really looked this time. The way his bandaged face never turned toward hers. The way he touched everything first, then moved with cautious memory. She nodded, though he couldn't see it. "What do you want me to do? Tell me what's left in the basket." The woven basket creaked as she lifted it. He could track her movements by sound now, the slight stagger as she adjusted to its weight, the way her breath hitched when discovering each ingredient. "1 turnip," she reported, then hesitated. "It's soft in spots, and 2 scallions." "Good," he exhaled. "We'll make soup." "But it's not enough." He held up a hand. "You'd be surprised what flavors still live in scraps." His fingers found the turnip unerringly. The spongy patches told him more than sight ever could. 3 days past prime, but the core would still be crisp. He peeled it with motions so precise they seemed choreographed, the knife flashing in rhythms older than her entire life. The girl's hands shook as she lifted the knife, but her grip tightened when the chef's voice cut through the silence. "Watch the blade," he murmured when she gasped. "Not my hands. The angle never changes. 30 degrees for root vegetables, 45 for meat." Her awed silence reminded him of the first apprentice he'd ever trained. That boy had wept when asked to debone a duck. This girl picked up the second knife without being told. But when he reached for the scallions, he stopped. "I want to hear them," he said. What? Slice one, slowly. The girl hesitated, then took one scallion and placed it on the cutting board. She mimicked what she had seen older villagers do, pressing down with a dull kitchen knife. Tak, tak, tak. The chef's head tilted. Too thick. Try again. She frowned, tried thinner cuts. Tak, 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 tak. He smiled faintly. There, that's the sound. She stared at him in disbelief. You can hear how thin they are? He nodded. The sound changes, like thread through silk, or boots through mud. Something stirred in her chest, like awe or wonder. She sliced the rest of the scallions, then leaned closer as he guided her through the cooking. Turnip first, then water. Let it boil, then tofu, then scallions at the end. He used salt sparingly, letting the heat draw out the natural sweetness. When she took the first sip, she froze. It wasn't rich or full like palace food. She had never tasted that. But it was warm, comforting, balanced. The bitterness of the turnip melted into the earthiness of the tofu, lifted by the scallion's brightness. I didn't know scraps could taste like this. The chef gave a slight shrug. The tongue remembers things the eyes forget. They ate together in silence. The girl noticed how the chef's bandages had loosened, and what curled beneath wasn't skin at all.